Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you're doing well today. This is Tulgon, and I decided to bring our baby horse in to hang out with me for True Crime Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the Tepe Murders today, which are from the Columbus, Ohio area, and it's a really awful situation for the families and for law enforcement in this particular case, because two parents were at home in their home in the middle of the night and were basically murdered. So that kind of a case really grips people. It's a real punch to the gut. And so I just finished talking with Ann Emerson about it, and on her show, which is going to air later tonight. And so I thought I would talk about that case today while I groom Tulgon. So here's what we know. Spencer Tepe and his wife Monique Tepe were at home on December 30th, 2025, so roughly about a week ago, and they had home in the middle of the night. They've got small kids, so it's not surprising that they're at home and probably in bed. And the media is reporting that Spencer and his wife were both gunned down in their bedroom. And in their bedroom, I mean, let me turn this just a little bit. Like in their bedroom, it's reported that Spencer was lying in blood near his bed. And I don't know where Monique's body was found. It appears that the reports are saying that Monique was shot once and that Spencer was shot 3 times. And that's really important to know. It's very important to recognize that you have what we call an asymmetrical attack on these people, on the victims in this case, because if you have a symmetrical wound pattern would be that they're both shot the same way and they're both shot the same number of times, but that actually is not what happened. Spencer's allegedly shot 3 times and his wife is shot once. And so when you have something like that, the first thing that I'm thinking is anger, because what does a firearm like that tell you? A firearm is the type of weapon that gives somebody power. So that's the first thing that we want to think about when we're talking about weaponry, and what kind of weapon does a person want to use. And then is it symbolic of power to the killer? Is this a person that carries a firearm all the time, and it symbolizes power to that person? So those are a couple of things that just about the weapon. So let's talk about victimology, because that's where we always start. The victimology is interesting. We know that Spencer is between 37 and 39 years old. I think both of them are about that age, he and his wife. And they are in their home. It's a place called Wineland Park, which is a really nice area there in Columbus. And the house has a balcony on the front with like French doors, and it's gray. And then there's also a main front door. And then there's appears to be like a backyard with a garage. And the garage, I can't really see in the pictures too well, but then it also appears that the backyard is fenced in with privacy fence, as opposed to other kinds of fence. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how their lay of their land there. And the police reported there's no forced entry in this case. There's nobody that no evidence of a robbery. And so when you're looking at somebody like Spencer and his wife, why would somebody want to kill them? The best thing to do first is to always look at the victimology and say, hey, what is Spencer's life like? What is Monique's life like? And in this case, we know that Spencer was a dentist, and the fact that he did not show up for work was the catalyst for why the welfare call went out. The welfare call went out because he said, he was always a person that was on time, and if he was going to be late for work or something, he would have called in and said, hey, there's something going on, I'm not going to be able to make it. His wife was a stay-at-home mom with their 2 little kids. They have like a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. And so she stays at home, and nobody could get a hold of her either, which is definitely a huge problem. So I'm really glad that you all joined me today, because I think this case really does hit home. It really upsets people, because you've got 2 little kids left in the house and 2 people dead. And so, what do we do with this? So looking at Spencer, we know that he's a reliable, predictable employee, which also makes it easier to target somebody like that, because you know that they're most likely going to be home at night. And this particular killer, when we're looking at how the relationship is between the victims and the offender, apparently the offender came in the house, went up the stairs, went all the way into the bedroom, and it looks to me like he ambushed both of these people and ended up shooting Spencer and shooting Monique, and he shot Spencer 3 times and he shot Monique once. That's an asymmetrical element of emotional rage. So there's more rage going towards Spencer than there is towards Monique. So for me, Spencer is most likely the primary target. Now, when we're talking about cases that are in the media, you guys know that me as a forensic criminologist, it's important that we don't overreach as an expert, right? So when you're an expert in anything, you do not want to make claims. So all we're doing here today is talking about what's in the media and what we can infer or analyze so far about what's being released. What I'm talking about here today, by no means is what has happened or what really is or anything, because I'm not part of the investigation and I don't know. Cutie pie. He's so cute, isn't he? Tulgon's like 18 months old, so he's a baby. So the fact that he's standing here letting me brush him this long is really great. So, when we're looking at Spencer, we can't confirm and we can't be super, super, super strict on what is going on victimology-wise, because all we know is what's going on in the media. We don't have firm victimology because, me personally, I have not been working this case. So let's talk about what we do know. They're home at night. There's no forced entry. The robbery does not appear to be a motive because nothing is taken in the house. And when we talk about victims, why does a person get murdered? Because they have a conflict with somebody else. And so when we look at the victimology, we want to study all the relationships that Spencer had with people. So we want to look at the relationship that he had with Monique first, because she's his wife. And then we want to look at the relationships that Spencer had with the people that he works with, his family, his friends, his patients, people that maybe he saw at the gym, people that he knows from places that he goes, vendors, people that work at their house and stuff like that. I'm going to move this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to move this on this side. Hey, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. We're live on TikTok and on Facebook, so you can join us on either platform. We're really happy to see you all here. It's great to have you in the barn today. Hey, Ava. Hey everybody on TikTok, thank you so much for coming. So, I don't know if you saw at the beginning, but this is Tulgon. He's one of our baby Gypsy Vanners. And I thought I'd bring him in and work with him today because training, you know, in forensic horsemanship, everything is training. And you can see how much he loves to be brushed. Huh, Tulgon. He loves to be brushed. See how his lip is coming out? That's when horses do that with their lip, they're smiling. So he thinks this feels good, and he's smiling and saying, thank you, I love this. This feels so good. This feels so good. So when we, you know, as a forensic criminologist and as a person who solves murders for a living and as a person, you know, who built forensic horsemanship and what we do in forensic horsemanship here at Crossroads Ranch, you know, we're always trying to take the trail that leads to the truth. You know, that's the goal. And for us in this case, we can't draw any conclusions. We can't render any opinions in the Tepe matter. All we can do is talk about it from, why are the children still alive? Well, I can tell you that, you know, not all killers kill children. And killers that do kill children, they are a very specific type of killer that are often targeted when they go to prison. You know, like people that kill kids, it's a really big deal. And so, you know, the fact that he leaves the children, or she leaves, you know, we don't know who the offender is yet, but the fact that the children are left unharmed shows that they're not part of the motive. And the fact that they're not part of the motive helps us understand, you know, what the motive might be. And where you find the motive in the case is typically in our murder room process, which, as you guys know, has a 98% solve rate. When we put a case through the murder room, you guys know that in stage 4, when we analyze everything, we separate stuff into white noise, and we sequester that out of the way. And we get to the bottom of what's going on based on the victimology, the wound pattern analysis, the suspectology, the crime scene. And in this case, the crime scene is telling us that it's the home of the victim. It's not the home of the offender, right? We don't think that the offender lived in the house. They're targeting the timeline into a 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. window, which is really tight. You know, that is a very tight operational window for a killer. And it doesn't take very long to shoot 2 people. So you have boom, 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 boom. You know, it's literally a very short period of time that it would actually take to fire 4 shots in this kind of a case. But how did the person get in the house? And why do we see this person of interest on the not the 911 call, on the surveillance video from the police had like a tower, and they had this tower where this camera was mounted, and they got this really good surveillance footage of who they think might be the killer. And they put this person of interest out, and they're not saying this is the killer, but they're saying, hey, you know, we want to talk to this person because we saw him walking away from within a few hundred yards of the Tepe's house between 2 and 5 a.m. in the morning. But they're not narrowing it down even further than that. They're keeping it, you know, fairly open. So what that's telling me is they are looking for a suspect, which is of course good. But on the flip side, you guys know me, you guys know how we operate at Laura Pettler Associates Death Investigations. We do not focus on the suspect, because when you focus on the suspect, you can often make your case go cold. And so we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're always focused on the victims. And in this case, I think that the primary target is going to be Spencer. And I think that, unfortunately, the rage is pointed at him because you've got 3 gunshot wounds to him and 1 to Monique. And it's kind of like she was a removal, unfortunately. Like the killer said, okay, you're a witness to this, so now, you know, I have to remove you from the scenario so that you don't identify me. And I don't know, where she was found in the house. If any of you guys know, I'd love to know what you guys think. And so, what do you think? When you're researching this case, what do you think? I'd be happy to talk to you and answer questions. So, I'm kind of thinking the kids are alive. Monique is shot once. Spencer is shot 3 times. There's so much anger going toward Spencer. Does anybody remember the Todd Colehep case from South Carolina? He was the realtor that ended up imprisoning these people in his in a shipping container on his property. Oh, rush you? Okay, sorry. And he imprisoned them, and after they caught him, they ended up finding that he killed the 4 people at the Superbike bike shop, the motorcycle place. And that case had been cold for years. And I said very early on when that case was happening that that case was an anger-based case. And I really think that it turned out that was exactly what it was, because he was a person who was a customer down there and at the bike shop, and he wanted to be part of their motorcycle riding group, and they wouldn't let him. They didn't want him to be part of the group. So he came back there with a firearm and he killed everybody. And so he was primarily angry at one victim rather than the others, and that was very, very clear that that victim took the brunt of the problem of Todd Colehep's anger and rage. And I think that it's fair to say that we might end up seeing that in the Tepe case as well, because in the Tepe case you've got 3 gunshots versus 1. And I keep going back to that, but that's important because when you have something like that, you can use it to help infer, is this an anger-based murder or is it a power-based murder? And in this case, we think it was possibly an anger-based murder. But again, we don't make any firm conclusions on anything at this stage of the game because we have to keep our minds open and everything open-ended, because the police are the only ones who know what's going on. I can tell you from working in the DA's office that when we would have a murder case going on, and then, here, Tulgon, come up here. Come on, Tulgon. Good boy. Thank you. When we would have a murder case going on, the media, is reporting one thing or the other, and we're actually in the courthouse, working the case or out in the field working the case. What the media is often reporting versus what's actually going on in real life are 2 totally different things. So we don't know actually what's happening inside the investigation, but what we do know is what they've released so far, that they want to talk to this person of interest that is seen on the surveillance footage. And it's a narrow window of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So what would we do in the murder room with this case? Where are we gonna take it? We're gonna analyze the victims first. And of course, as you know, that's always first for us no matter what we do. Then we compare everything back to the crime scene. In this case, we have no forced entry. We have oh my goodness. We have a suspect who's possibly walking to and from the scene. We know that the police think that this guy that's walking might be the suspect, and he's definitely walking from the scene. But a lot of times, anger retaliatory killers, they walk to and from the scene. And sometimes when they drive, or if they drive away from a scene, they end up running stoplights. They get all kinds of speeding tickets and stuff like that because they're so euphoric. And when this guy's walking, when you look at him in the surveillance video, what do you see? What do you see when when you're watching him on this video, because he's kind of like got his hands in his pockets and he's walking with his head down. It's interesting. And like, do they have ring footage of anybody with a ring camera on the front of their house? Come here, Tulgon. You know, do they have ring footage where they could actually see his face? And it appears to be a man. He's in a dark coat with lighter colored pants, and he's sort of shuffling along. When people kill, a lot of times they have like this release of endorphins, and they can appear very high. Like they kind of feel like they're euphoric, and it's a very cathartic experience, especially when you go back and you look at murder from the standpoint of what really causes murder. Well, murder is so simple. It's conflict resolution for the offender. But let's take it one step further. When we're talking about, you know, how to solve them, the easiest way is to identify the trigger. You know, what actually caused somebody to be upset with either Spencer or Monique? And where are you going? And then, what was the trigger? And then what emotion did the trigger produce? And then from that emotion, what kind of thought entered the killer's mind? And then from there, what was the behavior? So, for example, Spencer does something that makes the killer angry. The killer feels the emotion of anger. Then the killer feels like, okay, I feel anger. Now I have a thought, I want to kill Spencer. So then they act on the thought, which is the behavior, and they go to Spencer's house and they kill Spencer. His wife is in the room with him, so they kill the wife because she is a witness. And so that is one way that this case could be analyzed based on what we see in the media so far. Now, again, we could literally jump off this live and go into the media right now and look to see what they're reporting, and they could be reporting something totally different than what we're talking about right now. And everything we just said goes out the window and we have to start over. That's why the murder room has 6 stages, and we never go to conclusions. We never go into stage 6 until we are sure that we have all available information 100% before we ever do that. And so, you know, we don't have that. This is the beginning of an investigation. I'm a little concerned that it's gone a week long and they don't have anybody in custody, because statistically when you have murder cases, you know that the statistically murder gets very much a lot harder to solve after 48 hours. So this happened on the 30th, and obviously today's the 6th. So right now I'm focused on an anger retaliatory offender, which could change based on more information being resolved or being released. And I'm focused on 4 primary characteristics. I'm focused on the victimology and learning everything I can about Spencer and about Monique. And number 2, I am focused on studying the dynamics of the crime scene, called crime scene dynamics. And number 3, I'm focused on the crime scene characteristics. And from all of those, you can develop, are you nibbling on me? You can develop patterns of, you can infer the homicidal pattern. And then once you've inferred the homicidal pattern, that is the way that people create criminal profiles. Impatient baby. Come on. He's losing his patience. But he's done so great, hasn't he? He's been great. So those are the 4 primary things that I'm focused on. And maybe I'll go live again later this week and we'll talk about it again, what's updated. Tonight, I will be on Ann Emerson's show called Criminally Obsessed. It's on YouTube. It's a really good show. You should join. And I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's joined us on TikTok and everybody who's joined us on Facebook today for our second True Crime Tuesday at Crossroads Ranch. And just to let you guys know, as you know, Paul Holes will be here doing a presentation on the 21st of January, which is just a couple weeks away. Tickets are on sale on our website at laurapettler.com. And our first CSI horse camp looks like it's going to be in February, hopefully weather permitting. And I'll have the date posted for that. We'd love to see everybody at CSI Horse Camp. When you guys know what we do, we ride in the morning and then we come back and you guys investigate mock crime scenes in the afternoon. So I'd love to see you here. And, you know, always remember, you know, Crossroads Ranch, the reason we created this place, we're the only true crime horse farm in America. We believe in forensic horsemanship where science leads so connection with our horses can follow. And we believe that every trail leads to the truth in forensic criminology. And that's how we solve murders. And we help law enforcement and criminal justice professionals move forward for justice for victims and answers for family. And that is the bottom line. So thank you so much again for joining me today. I am going to catch a flight to Los Angeles now. And Tulgon has enjoyed joining us today. He's been a good baby horse. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much.